In this video, we're actually going to be doing it in two. For Chapter 11, we're going to the first video is going to be talking about investing basics, and then the second video is going to be looking at the idea of bonds. All right. So you see the learning objectives that go along with it. The primary thing that we're doing as far as investments is to think about what is it that we want to invest for the long term. We need to think about what our financial goals will be. In other words, do you want to put aside enough money to buy a house, or do you want to put aside money for retirement? So you have to figure out what your investment goals are going to be. As you're doing that, you want to think about how much money you're going to need to satisfy those goals. How much risk are you willing to take? Because with risk, higher risk comes higher returns. Lower risk comes lower returns. What kind of economic or conditions might you be running into that you need to plan for? Are you willing to make the sacrifices necessary to make sure that you achieve the goals that you're wanting to do? Those are the things that you have to kind of think about. Now, before you think about putting together an investment plan or a program, first of all, you need to make sure that you're paying your bills on time, okay? You have balanced your budget and you've managed your credit card debt. Get out of debt as far as your credit cards are concerned. Make sure that you're paying each one in full. Don't use them for small purchases. Just use cash, use your debit card, and things like that. So make sure that you have gotten yourself in a good place as far as your overall finances first before you actually put together an investment program. One of the first things you want to do after you get your financial house in order is start that emergency fund so that you have about 3 months of cash on hand to handle any kind of emergencies that you may have. When you're putting all this together, first of all, pay all your bills and then pay yourself. All right, make sure that you are paying yourself right up front. In other words, you are putting aside some money, no matter how little it is. We've talked about that before. If your employer has some sort of a retirement program, be a part of it. It's amazing how much that money can accumulate over time. Participate in an elective savings program. In other words, have some money taken out of your checking account every month, putting into a savings account or a CD or something like that. So these are some things to start thinking about before you start investing in things. One of the things to remember is the time value of money. In other words, the more that you can put aside regularly over time, the more it's going to grow. And higher rate of return, higher risk. So when you start thinking about that, it actually is a trade-off between risk and return. All right. You don't want to go speculative on everything. In other words, let's say that you have $10,000. You don't want to bet it all on one roll of the dice. You want to make sure that what you're doing is you're balancing some of the things that you're doing as far as your investments are concerned. You need to think about the various risks that come into play. Inflation. Let's say that you're putting money away in a savings account that's getting 1.5% per year. If inflation's going at 2 to 3%, you're losing money. Interest rates are going to change over time. In other words, let's say that you get a CD that's like 5 years at 3%, but all of a sudden interest rates go up to 5%. You're losing money. Let's say that you invest in some stocks. Sometimes companies go belly up and people who invest in stocks lose everything. So these are things to think about when you start thinking about risk. You also have to think about what kind of growth that you want to get. Earlier in your career, you have the opportunity to make up any losses that you have. So you probably want to invest more in growth earlier in your career, the younger you are. The older you are, you want to start moving more towards safety and liquidity. Liquidity is the ability to get cash quickly. Okay, so you're talking about checking accounts, savings accounts, things like this, so that you can get that stuff right away. If you do some CDs and you try to cash them in before they are due, you're going to pay a penalty on those. It could be the interest only, or it could be a portion of the principal. Stocks do have a place in your investment portfolio. Now, investment portfolio is all of your investments. Okay, that's what that is. They call it a portfolio. You have to think about what it is you want to put in there. Stocks can have a place, but it's more than just, as it says, it's just more than just picking a bunch of stocks to invest in. You have to think about which ones are really right for me. Because one of the things you want to do is diversify your investments. In other words, have some stocks and some bonds, and maybe some risk-free assets and things like that. You want to make sure that what you're doing is you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket. So make sure that you have diversified how you are allocating your money on things. When you start thinking about the different types of alternatives, corporate stocks do have some risk, and depending upon the stock, they may be relatively safe also. You do get some income, and you have a much higher probability for high growth. All right? Bonds are where you are lending the company or the government money. With a bond, what you're doing is you're buying this bond and you're actually lending them money. At a certain point in time, they're going to pay you back. During that time that you have lent them money, they're going to pay you interest on that. Mutual funds are where you put together a series of stocks or bonds or something along those lines. And you can buy a mutual fund that might have 10, 20, 50 different stocks that are a part of it. What it's doing is it's spreading the risk amongst all of those things. And then real estate, you do have safety, but there is risk that goes along with any kind of real estate. The thing is, trying to get your money out of it can be kind of tough. It may take time to sell that piece of property. When you think about the investment pyramid, early on, later in your career, you need to think about what level are you at, and how do you balance your risk versus your return. The lowest level of risk that has the most financial security is cash, okay? And then CDs, money market, government bonds. Next level up is safety, but you do get some income, all right? So it could be certain stocks and bonds, municipal bonds, things like this, conservative mutual funds. The higher up you go, the more risk you're taking. The thing is, you're also getting some better returns, all right? You can lose your money, though. So when you're thinking about your role in the investment process, you need to think about the different investments. One of the things that I tell folks is, go get some help. Get somebody who might be a financial planner who can teach you and also help work with you as far as what is it that you need in your investment portfolio that would be best for your goals. One of the things to also think about is also what happens if you run into an economic crisis. In other words, you get laid off at work, or all of a sudden the market crashes, things like that. What are you going to do? Have a plan for that. So what we're going to do next, we're going to go ahead and stop this video and go to the next video where we will start talking about bonds, both government and corporate.